It's not Kimi Räikkönen. It's Kimi Antonelli. Even though they said it wrong at the podium, it's not. As much as we all wanted to be Kimi Räikkönen again one day because we just love him and wish he would come back with his dry answers, it's a new Kimi Antonelli. First win, Tim. And it's a big one. It's a big one. I mean, the Chinese Grand Prix with Lewis Hamilton, breathing down his neck and George Russell breathing down his neck. And frankly, it kind of reminds me of the mid-2010s with Ferrari and Mercedes going head-to-head like this, and Mercedes ultimately coming out as the victory. Let's talk about Kimi's performance today, Tim, because he was good all weekend long.
He was. I mean, being the youngest ever to grab a pole position in Formula One, I guess that's really good for the confidence, Adam. I think.
Yeah.
Obviously, because George had his issues in Q2 at the end of Q2, they had changed it from wing. Then they had a ton of electrical gremlins with the car, trying to get it out of the pits. Then when they got it out in Q3, he got stuck on the track, had to drive it around in first gear. So, there was a lot that went into that, and George not more than likely qualifying on pole position. So I don't want to, Kimi still fought for this. There's no question about it, and he had to get the job done in the race, which he did. And I'm not taking anything away from what he had done in the Grand Prix because he actually was really great at him. I think. This shows a lot of bright spots for Antonelli. It really does. And I think if you're Toto Wolff, you're definitely more than pleased at the trajectory that this driver has taken over the last few races.
No kidding. And he said it in his post game, right? He said, oh, Kimi, you're too young or you're making too many mistakes or whatever. Congratulations, you did it. That's got to be a pretty sweet sense of vindication for Toto, who frankly has had some of his leadership questioned dating all the way back to the regulation change in 2022.
Yeah, I think when the team obviously took a turn there in 2022, coming off of the disappointment of 2021, and then thinking that you had something that was truly special with your car design with the zero pods in 2022, and then not being able to sort of get that regulation right and hitting this regulation with the power unit side of things, hitting that out of the park. I mean, they've done a great job in that respect. And then I think Adam also last season, bringing Kimi in, a lot of questions around whether you could get an 18-year-old to replace a 7-time Formula One world champion, one of the greatest Formula One drivers of all time, and Lewis Hamilton. And it's kind of like, okay, well, how do you replace that, right? And all of, Toto's like Kimi Antonelli, and I think a lot of pundits, a lot of analysts were questioning that decision. Obviously, that's why Toto put that message out over the radio. But I think I'd never questioned Antonelli's raw ability, raw pace. I questioned the mental toughness that a driver, when reaches a pinnacle like Formula One or IndyCar or Champ Car or whatever it may be, WEC, et cetera, sort of has to have. And I think it was after the Italian Grand Prix that I started to see sort of this young driver really taking steps to come into their own and to have that mental toughness. And I think what we're seeing now is essentially a driver who has a ton of raw ability, raw talent, being refined, the likes of Toto and Bono, his engineer, sort of taking him under their wing, so to speak, and giving him tools that he can use to evolve as a racing driver is huge. It's crucial to his development. And if he is to be a Formula One world champion one day, these are the steps that he does need to go through.
Right.
And I think we saw it, Adam, like in the race. So towards the end, I want to say it was probably about 10 or 15 laps towards the finish of the Grand Prix. And Antonelli was like, I was watching the data tracker, and he was just fastest. He set a fastest lap, and then he set a personal best, and he set another fastest lap. And this is like, we're winding down. The tires are starting to get old, and he's got a 7.5 second gap to Russell. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, he doesn't really need to do this right now because he has this thing in the bag. And so I jumped on board, started watching him, and sure enough, typical young driver thing where you're always trying to grab and stretch for more and more and more when you don't have to, but you want to be seen as the fastest one out on the track that day, makes a mistake, locks up, and goes off the track.
Right.
And it was at that moment that Toto, finally had to say to Bono, like, hey, you got to tell him to settle down and bring the car home, because what he's doing right now is jeopardizing that victory, and we need him to bring this thing home. So just little things like that, where you kind of need to rein a driver in, which is a good thing, because you never want to have to be pushing a driver. You want to be reining them in. But I think for Kimi, sometimes you need to rein him in a little bit more. I appreciate that as a driver, and I really do see what Bono and like Toto are doing with him as a racing driver, and I think they've really got something there, Adam.
Well, and it was nice to see, by the way, Lewis and Bono, giving each other a hug after Kimi and Lewis gave each other a hug, and obviously all those pictures flooding the internet of Kimi and Lewis, a few years ago when Kimi was just tiny, and
that's crazy.
It's crazy to see, and it's exciting, and I love these full circle moments that are happening with Lewis. Obviously, Lando was another guy, George was another guy. These guys grew up watching and loving him.
Yeah.
And I think it's, that part of it is really heartwarming. That's kind of a really special part of where the sport is right now. Now, as far as Mercedes goes, like one of the things, and this is very, very early, but one of the things I wondered is Kimi Antonelli ready to battle George Russell for the world championship? Like, are they ready to go toe-to-toe the way Lando and Oscar did last year? Because it sure seems like, at least the way it's going, Mercedes got the car, and they've got two drivers who have won the first two races. Could it be? Is a 20-year-old ready for that? Or, sorry, not a 20-year-old yet.
Yeah.
19-year-old?
I see. Look, he's got a lot to still learn.
Yeah.
I mean, just this weekend alone, I think, Adam, he learned a lot about the tires. He learned a lot about the tires and it being cold. This race was particularly cold. The graining effect that was so easy to throw the tire through, and for him to start learning those things now, again, it's like one of those tools in the tool belt, so to speak. I mean, Toto made mention of this where he's kind of saying like, look, there's press in Italy kind of saying like, oh, Kimi Antonelli, the next Italian world champion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And look, Toto's one of those who has to like tell him, look, we have a long way to go here before you are that.
Yeah.
So I don't see Kimi pressing George Russell for a driver's title. George is, at this moment, Adam, he is just way too good, way too locked in. Mm-hmm. He's really understood this regulation, this type of driving that is required. We can't take that away from George. And I think if Kimi can make some really big steps, which isn't possible, it's possible for sure. I mean, maybe he could, but like, I don't know. I still feel like world championship stuff is still a few years away at this moment.
So when I kind of zoom out a little bit here, obviously we're seeing with Ferrari, right off the bat of this race again, they were ahead. That mini turbo they have going on seems to be the right call, except for the fact that in pure race pace over, 40, 50, 60 laps, it's going to be hard for them to maintain any leads they build up, barring some sort of mechanical failure on Mercedes' part. What can Ferrari do? Because obviously Lewis being on the podium was great. He won in China last year with the sprint race. I'm curious about what Ferrari can do to close that gap and give their drivers who seem to be, showed up ready to fight and ready to go. What can they do in the next few races here to close it up? How long does that take to do?
It's a good question, but it's a complex one. I mean, if we look at it from a couple of different angles, I mean, one of them is that Ferrari has built a really good car. Power unit wise, it's not on the same level as the Mercedes, and that was clear as day this weekend. They just do not have the power. It does not produce a straight line speed that the Mercedes power unit does. However, it corners better. It gets into the corner better. It's better on the brakes as well. Like you had mentioned, Adam, they get great starts because of that small turbo ingenuity that they've designed. However, to take a step forward in that engine department, I mean, it's going to be tough. The engines are sealed, right? They've been homologated as of March 1st. There's not much you can do to them. You have to prove that you are 2% down on power, which I think Ferrari is going to do.
Yeah.
They will try to prove that they are that gap to Mercedes to allow them to open up that engine and make adjustments, because I think they do know where they have to make some gains.
Do you think they'll be successful in that?
I think they can be, yeah, for sure. I think
because if they're successful in that, so can half the field, right?
Exactly. I think there are arguments to be made. I mean, obviously with everybody, but there are arguments to be made when you look at like straight line power, straight line speed and deployment and harvesting, like where you're kind of at. And I think they're probably lower than I think it's probably more than 2%, to be honest with you. I think it's a little bit more. And so I think they can make that case to the FIA. Now, I think the next part of it is, when will they be allowed to do that? Considering we've lost 2 races, which is something, Adam, we should probably talk about.
We are going to talk about that. Yep.
If they can make that case, I think if the FIA decides they're going to change when that's going to be, because it is supposed to be after round 6. But now that we've lost 2 races, is it going to be after Miami? I think that is what the next round of conversations, which they will be having after Japan, I think that is going to be taken into consideration. That conversation will happen then. But if they can do that, they can close that gap to Mercedes. I think in terms of like the car itself, like they have a really great car, Adam. And I really think that all they need to do is just design it, add a little bit more performance to it, and I can see them making more gains. Now, when it comes to the other part of like what Ferrari does in terms of that ingenuity, right? They tried the Macarena wing, right? So they tried it in free practice 1, and they took it off for the rest of the weekend. We are expected to get another iteration of that wing for the Canadian Grand Prix. That's a good place to bring it out if you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And that helps with like straight line speed. So they have brought really interesting things to their car. I mean, Loke Serra, I think, who's, he's a part of their technical director. He's a part of this car, like designing, helping develop the aerodynamics of it and all of that. I think he's done a really great job of just genuine innovation when it comes to the aerodynamic side. And it's something we haven't really seen from Ferrari. It's quite some time, but I think they can be happy on that front. And then I think if you look at the drivers, you've got 2 world-class drivers who are also pushing the team, pushing each other. And I think, Adam, when you combine all that together, I think Ferrari's going to be really hard to beat later this season.
So I want to talk a little bit more about that conversation that's going to happen post-Japan. Obviously, we lose Bahrain, we lose Saudi Arabia. We'll talk about that in just a sec. But that conversation that's due to take place, Tim, what do you know about that? Because, there have been a lot of complaints. Max Verstappen was saying it's just awful. And it was funny watching Toto Wolff talk about it, because he was like, yeah, well, the car Max is driving is pretty awful. I sure feel bad for him. please come over to Mercedes. It was I mean, he's like, I don't blame him because it looks bad. Like, it's sort of, I loved that conversation between the, sort of through the press between the two of them, because, Max hates this. He thinks, he called it, compared it to Mario Kart, right? It's boost driving, it's boost passing. I know a lot of people online are like, hey, listen, it has made for some very, very interesting on-track occurrences. If you're a purist, you're not going to love it because, again, it's boost driving. It's not racing, right? So, or at least in the traditional sense, car versus car.
Yeah.
So what do you think will be made of this after Japan? What's the conversation going to be?
Well, we were on here last podcast, me, you, and Nelson, and we talked about a meeting that was due to happen following China, and that got pushed to following Japan. Well, there will be a meeting next week. It's whether or not there will be another meeting following Japan. Let's say it like that. All right. So we talked about how there were parts of this regulation that were under discussion for changes. I mean, obviously, we've seen online a lot of the backlash that has come with the new 2026 power units, the style of driving, style of racing.
Yep.
And there was to be a meeting to try and make some changes to that. Now, we discussed on the podcast, you can go back and listen to it. It was a good show. We really opened it up and talked about this pretty in depth. But for the moment, F1 and the FIA don't want to make a knee-jerk reaction and just start putting Band-Aids over Band-Aids. Okay. And so essentially what is happening now is everyone is sort of pooling data, bringing ideas, and what could be some of the fixes that teams and drivers would like to see. Because when you start making bigger reactions, quick ones, without diving into details, that's when you really open up a whole can of worms and you just create one problem that creates another problem. I did jump on here and say, after Australian Grand Prix, like, I wasn't willing to just judge all of this just yet, because I knew these teams were doing that and I knew this was going to take a while. And so I think it's the smart way to go about it. I spoke with a team boss about it, and he even told me, like, hey, the worst thing we can do is just making a knee-jerk reaction for the sake of making a knee-jerk reaction, because we can make things a whole lot worse. Yeah. He said basically the best thing to do is to try to get as much data as we can, pool together our thoughts, ideas, resources, and agree on a direction that we would like to see certain things changed. Adam, as a fan, what did you make of, I don't know how much of the weekend you saw.
All of it.
You saw the entire thing. So
everything.
What are your thoughts from each sort of session that you watched?
Well, I think what's clear is that there's going to be a lot more back and forth. Like, there is a lot more battling, and I don't mind that. I think that from an entertainment perspective, you can sell that. The question is, for the purists, and, I don't know if I'd consider myself like a purist, but I've certainly like racing for racing's sake. Is it racing, right? Or is it boosting? And I don't know. That part for me, it's like, oh, well, have I really raced, or did I charge my battery at the right time and really get that guy? And is that what racing is going to be going forward, right? Like, is this the natural progression of technology, which is the whole point of the sport, right? The whole point of the sport is to push boundaries. And if we're going in a hybrid direction, obviously, it'd be nice if we were going in biofuels direction. Maybe we can do a little of both. But I think that's my sense of it so far. I'm not outraged by it the way I think Max is, but I'm not also sold on it. Does that make sense?
Totally. Like, you're kind of approaching this as, is it artificial or isn't it artificial?
Yeah, exactly. And
then I guess I would also say, like, did you think DRS was artificial?
Well, I guess it is. I mean, how else can you describe it? Or is it, it's essentially all it was a power boost too, right? Or it was a lack. Yeah, I mean, it was a lack of resistance, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You just weren't getting that extra horsepower that they get now, right? It's just a different way of dealing with an issue that has plagued motorsports forever, which is the faster these cars go, the more downforce they generate, the more dirty air spills off the car.
Right.
And there is nothing you can do about that because it's going to affect the car behind you.
Yep.
Now, I want to see what you think. I want to get your take on qualifying and what you think about, because again, approaching this from Adam, you're the fan, you're watching qualifying. What do you think of qualifying?
I think it's weird a little bit. I think it's a little weird. There's something, and I can't quite put my finger on it. There's just something about it that I'm like, I don't know how to describe it, Tim, but I know it entertainment wise, it's good. Like just pure entertainment value. Forget, put your racing, stuff aside, all the way things used to be. Because I never want to become that as a fan and as a commentator. I never want to become somebody that's like, well, it was better in my day. Like I want to go, okay, if it's not as good as it used to be, what can we do now to progress it forward, right? But I don't know why, but I feel weird about qualifying.
Yeah, so this is something that you and I had full transparency to everybody watching, listening. Adam and I haven't talked about these regulations in text or otherwise. No. Like we do not discuss. Actually, Adam, you and I don't even talk about the racing.
No,
until we do this.
We want fresh reactions.
This is the only time Adam and I actually really talk Formula One. We don't even talk that much Formula One in our group chats that we have at SDPN. So. This is it. Like people who are watching and listening, you're getting it right now. And so, yeah, it's interesting to hear you say like when you watch it, you're not sure about it. So I want to say like when you tune in to watch a sport, are you tuning in to watch a good level of competition, an athlete pushing themselves as far as they can, doing incredible things like the athlete, the human being?
Yep.
Or is there another reason you're tuning in to watch it? Like watch any sport, even hockey, Adam, even hockey.
Yeah, I think the entertainment value is in people pushing themselves to the limit and doing things that seem incredible, right? I mean, doing things that we couldn't do. That's what was such a draw with Formula One is the unbelievable, hand-eye coordination and the fitness and the this and the that, and the amount of work and the speed and glamour and all that. There's so much to a sport that sort of pulls you in, but all of those things are present in Formula One, which is why I like it so much. So to answer, I hope that answers your question.
Sure.
That's why I answer. Yeah.
I think at this moment when we watch qualifying, that will be something that needs to be addressed. At the moment, when I heard drivers' reactions at the end of the Australian Grand Prix, and I said this on SportsCenter, I said qualifying is going to need to be looked at, and it does need to be looked at. And so when I heard from Charles Leclerc at the end of the Australian Grand Prix qualifying, and he was talking about a lot of the software, how something affected them in Q1 something affected them in Q2 that basically bled through into Q3 because of something that happened in Q1. And then I started to hear from Oscar Piastri at the end of Australian Grand Prix, the Chinese Grand Prix qualifying. And he started talking a lot about how if he were to take the car and push it, he's going to lose lap time. But if he takes the car and he's consistent with it, even if he makes a mistake inside the lap, he'll still get rewarded with extra power.
See, that's bizarre to me.
Yes.
I mean, that's what we need. We need pushing the limits. And that, I suppose, kind of sums it up, right? Because that's just not what's happening in that way yet.
It's not. The drivers aren't pushing these cars, which look great, by the way. Actually, I do really like this iteration of Formula One car. It does look exciting. I like the idea that they've done away with a lot of the downforce. And look, I get the idea of more power. I'm fine with that too, because you're essentially allowing the drivers' reactions and everything to steer the ship. But the problem is that you have so much software built in and around how the car harvests, how it deploys, and you tend to put the driver in a box. And if you're putting the driver in a box, they can't really express their talent.
Yeah.
And they can't make the difference in qualifying. When Charles Leclerc, last year's a good example. Ferrari was on the back foot all season. There was no question about that. But when they needed a lap to get that car into some sort of a competitive position, and Lewis was having his issues with the car, Leclerc would pull something out of nowhere to get the car into a respectable qualifying position.
Yep.
He's doing that. He's the one who is making that difference. So when we sit here and we talk about Charles Leclerc is probably one of the best qualifiers in Formula One, because he is the one with that talent who can take something that's out of control and put it in control and squeeze every last ounce of performance out of it without making a mistake, crashing the car, but being brave, smooth, focused, and delivering exactly when it needs to be delivered. And for me, qualifying was, like, as a driver now, put the driver brain back on. You wanted to be that person who made the difference for your team. And so at the moment, qualifying does need to be looked at for sure. The racing aspect of it, actually, I didn't mind. Actually, it was entertaining. I was pretty entertained. I think the question is what do the drivers really like? What changes from the racing side would the drivers like to see? I like the idea of having that that sort of push to that overtake boost mode weapon in your back pocket that you can use and deploy, right? And so maybe the question is, how much of it are you deploying? How much of it are you harvesting? So how much energy? So that comes back to our conversation we had on the Thursday, was like, how much energy are you putting out and taking in? And maybe that's something that needs to be looked at. I found the racing really entertaining for sure in both the sprint and the Grand Prix as well. I mean, Lewis Hamilton even saying, like, some of the most fun he's had at him in a Formula One car and like in a race since go-karts. That's
what I'm saying, right? Like, he loved the drive. He was raving about it.
Yeah. And like, you can even see that, like, Lewis, like, mentally, I don't think even physically and mentally, like, he's back to his best, right? Like, he looks invigorated. He's had a great training camp to get ready for this. He's had to find different ways of recovering so he can be ready for a long season like we're in for. And he's been working well with the engineers. I think he feels more connected with Ferrari. I think he feels more connected with the team. He's working well with the current engineer that he has. And he's heading back to Maranello next week to do more work. And I think that comes from an inspired driver who is having fun with what they're doing in a race car in a Grand Prix setting. Right.
So it's not all bad.
Not all bad. No, not at all. I do think there are. I mean, it's funny. I get a lot of negative comments on this stuff, Adam. And that's fair. I mean, it's fair. But I think when you say, like, Max's point of view, I think his quote was like, you don't understand, like, what real racing is if you think this is real racing kind of thing. I don't think that's a fair comment to make. And I think, like, Lewis, and then you have one of the extreme examples as well on the other side, where Lewis is like, this is the best racing ever, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, well, I could make some arguments where you were winning a lot of Grand Prix and winning championships, and I mean, there's an argument there to be made. So I think it's somewhere more in the middle. I think it's a good idea that we see more races. with this regulation before any knee-jerk reactions happen. I think it's smart by F1 and the FIA to really do their due diligence and communicate with the teams and really listen to the drivers and what they want and see where this thing can shake out. There might not be a lot that can change for this season. There might be a little bit that can change for this season, but that won't stop it from being changed for the future.
Right. And Tim, I'm curious about how you think Lando and Oscar might feel about the regulations after today. Yeah. I don't know. Today had nothing to do really with the regular. I guess it did in the sense that it's the car. Yeah, it did. But what happened? I mean, I saw Andrea Stella's sort of breakdown afterwards, where he addressed the fans, and obviously he didn't say too much about.
Sure, I can give
what
you
it was.
Yeah, I can tell you what it was.
What is it? What happened?
So I heard from some team personnel. So on Lando's car, when they were on the way to the grid, we'll start with Lando, then we'll move into Oscar because they are kind of similar issues. So when Lando's car was on the way to the grid, they did see some problems with the electrical side of the power unit, and they couldn't communicate with it through software. So they brought him back in, and then they tried changing a ton of parts on the car with little to no success, really. And there was no way of fixing the problem in time because the job it was going to take to fix everything was just too big. It would have taken too long. They would have missed the race anyway. So the team did try to replace the ECU. And I did get some messages about that, where some were saying that they had listened to our show on Thursday and they were like, hey, like, what is with this standard ECU stuff that gets handed out? Why can't the teams build their own? Blah, 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 blah. All great questions.
Yeah.
But the standard ECU, it was replaced on Lando's car because they had no communication with the battery and the MGUK. So they replaced all that quite easily. It just still there wasn't any communication with the power unit itself. So changing the components did take some time, but it didn't make a difference. Anything that they were going to do with that car was never going to work. So yeah, Stella's going to talk to HPP, which is Mercedes high performance powertrains, and see how an issue like this can be avoided in the future. But from the information that McLaren was given at the time, they aren't sure what the root causes of all of the problems were from the electrical side of the power unit. So that's something that HPP is going to have to work with McLaren on to try and sort out what the full issues were. Now, for Oscar's was a bit similar, but he was able to get out, drive around, park the car on the grid. But it was a little easier to diagnose what his issues were. Was a problem on the electrical side of the power unit as well. It wouldn't really dive into detail exactly as to what that component was. But both issues were terminal because there was just no time to fix the issues. For Oscar's car, it just wouldn't start. Like, they couldn't get the thing fired up. It was on the grid, and they were like, okay, well, we got another issue here with this thing, so we'll wheel it back in. The shame for Oscar is he hasn't even completed a lap this season.
Not one, which is an unbelievable stat. That's such a crazy stat.
I mean, you couldn't make that up, Adam.
No.
And having, 4 cars not take the start of the race, I mean, and 2 of those cars probably could have played a factor.
Yeah.
At some point, is unbelievable. Like that's not good. I am impressed though, Adam, to see where McLaren has come so far.
Really? In what way? Because I'm curious about that.
Well, I mean,
because this is funny. It's just so funny after a double did not even start. That you're like, wow, you know what? I'm impressed. Maybe in 2015, but not really. That's impressive.
As soon as that came out of my mouth, I was like, that came out wrong.
But the car looks better in qualifying.
It does. The car does look better. I think what I'm trying to say is their understanding of car power unit combination is getting better. Because when they left Australia, you were looking at 2 frustrated drivers, a very frustrated team principal who did make his points in the media and we talked about what those points were on the show following the Australian Grand Prix, did make those issues about how they weren't getting the proper information from Mercedes and how that needed to be changed. They were a customer team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is not how Formula One works, et cetera, et cetera. So you had a very frustrated team on their way to China. Now, they have been able to really learn, I think, a lot more about what they have. They were closer in qualifying, so to speak. They had better success this weekend than what they'd had in Australia, albeit both cars did not take the Grand Prix. But when you look at the bigger picture and you understand that, hey, we were way back here at the start of the season, and then one race after that, we've now closed that gap pretty big. Like, it's a big gap that they have now cut in half. So the next race, I'm sure they're going to take even more time out of that overall delta to Mercedes. The bad thing is not getting the Constructors' Championship points, right? Like,
it's painful, man. That's painful.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
You can't have any of those starts. You can't do that. You can't do that and expect to win.
No, and I think for McLaren, they're expecting this, Adam, to kind of be like 2023, where they started on that back foot. And then as 2023 evolved, that car got better and it got faster and it got closer to everybody but Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
But the car did get better. And so you went into 2024, again, starting a tiny bit on the back foot. But by the time you got to Miami, they were the best car in the grid.
Right.
So I think for this season, Adam, it's similar to that, only I think they're probably going to be even more competitive as we get like halfway through this season. I really can see McLaren taking big steps. I really can. I wouldn't be worried about them just yet.
Okay, well, that's good. Now, Alpine was up in there, and actually I want to kind of quickly talk about Esteban Ocon and Franco Colapinto getting into it. Esteban went for a gap, Tim,
Didn't
exist. It when you watch the onboard, you're like, okay, it closed really. They were being awfully nice to him. Like, I think on the Sky Sports broadcast, they're saying, well, it's a gap, but it closed quickly. It's a racing incident. Obviously Esteban ended up getting a 10-second penalty. Doesn't matter. Tim, what was your thoughts on that? Like, was that just a racing driver being a racing driver, or was that a guy going? Like making a bad decision because he's under pressure? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, definitely it was a horrible decision on Esteban's part, but I can see why, right? Like, Colapinto's coming out of the pits and Esteban has to get by him so he doesn't lose too much time to those who are in front of him. And Esteban was having one of those races where you were kind of like, oh, damn, this could be a race where he scores like those big, meaningful points. Like, and Esteban's known to do that, right? Like, he's always kind of like around when there's big points to be gained because he didn't end up taking that pit stop because he started on the hard tire. And so he was in a great position to really capitalize on big point scoring day. Then just making the error that he did. I mean, obviously he took full responsibility for it, which is, as he should. But that's a driver, Adam, who I wonder if Io Komatsu's comments at the start of the season are, getting into his head a little bit. Okay, which I wonder.
For anybody that doesn't know, Io Komatsu said they needed more out of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and he is under pressure from your words, Adam. He is under pressure when it comes to that teammate dynamic because Ollie Behrman had one hell of a race, almost destroyed Isaac Hajar.
He's also ahead of both McLaren drivers in the standings right now, which I think is hilarious.
Friggin' wild, man.
That's not crazy. Yeah.
But he was like dead last, right? In this race. I mean, he said some comments via play, which they were pretty funny. He like swore and then he was like, oh, I mean, damn. When talking about his collision with Hajar. Great recovery from him. That was really, really impressive. He's a really good driver, man. Like, I'm just really impressed by Behrman. And I've said that on here before, but damn, he's good, man. He's giving Esteban anything he can handle. Esteban's no slouch, right? Let's not forget that. Esteban's an extremely fast driver, okay?
Yep.
He's very good. But Behrman's just Yeah, I'm really impressed. I can see what Ferrari sees in him. That's for sure.
So I also want to talk about, I mean, Colapinto finished in the points, which is great, considering that they had that sort of run in and his side pod was sort of wrecked, but, still able to get a point out of it. Pierre Gasly up in 6th place. Alpine seems to somewhat have it together, Tim.
I don't know how, because they have some issues with this car.
Yeah.
Like, they got issues with it. That front wing that they have on the car is not working for them whatsoever. They have a lot of issues to fix with that. The reason why a front wing is so important is because it's the first thing to pierce the air. It's the first thing that hits the air, that allows the air to travel through the car. And if that's not working properly, then the rest of your aerodynamic philosophy falls apart. And for those two guys to score points in this race, very impressive. For Colapinto, 24 Grand Prix, I think it is the stat, where he hasn't scored a point. I believe that's what that stat is. But people can double check if I'm wrong. Just correct me in the comments, but I'm pretty sure what that is. That's what that is. But I think it's good for him. It's good for the confidence too. It's good for Flavio's confidence in him. You can see Flavio more understanding of Franco. Seeing some of the comments that have come out from Flavio over the weekend, you can see that I think his perception of Franco is changing as well, which is great. I mean, that's really what you want, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think, Flavio is one of those guys that he is such a tough guy, I think, to work for. Yeah. When you have his confidence, that's got to feel really, really good. Colapinto had a great race. As I said, Gasly had a great race. Looking at the results now, you forget that, hey, the Williams team, as much as they've stepped into this and, had a bit of a messy start to the season, Tim, Carlos got into the points today. He got a couple points. I know part of that is McLaren being out or having a couple of cars out, but,
sure.
You take advantage when you get it.
Absolutely. I mean, Alex not being able to start the race with what I had reported was a hydraulic issue. I'm surprised that they scored points. That car, that has no business scoring points. It doesn't. Look, we have people who work for Williams who watch the show, listen to the show. I'm sorry, but that car is just, he dragged that car to points. And
I'm sure Williams has been pretty upfront about their issues, and I think that they're owning them, and that's the only way that you can get to that point, right? That's the only way that you can solve the problem, is sort of acknowledging it and going, we got to do better than this. Nice to see him in there. I don't know how you don't root for Carlos Sainz. It was pretty awesome. And I want to very quickly talk about too, Leon Lawson and Arvid Lindblad, because they were, obviously Arvid's finished outside of the points this week, but that RB car is something. Like, there is something there, Tim, and it seems like, it's been a while. I think it was 2021 when Gasly won with that team, that first year of AlphaTauri. And I wonder.
Yes. Well, wait.
Didn't he win Monza?
2021? Yeah, it was Monza. I'm just trying to remember what the date was. It wasn't 2020. Yeah, I think you're right, Adam. I think it was 2021.
If I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But the point is, this seems like a year where if those guys have a good day and everything goes right, which is what happened to Gasly that day, they could win a race again. They could. They're not out of it like they've been.
I mean, you need going to need some luck at some points, right? Like, one, you got to hang around. Mm-hmm. You got to hang around, and when those at the front start to drop off, then you got to pick up the pieces. So yeah, for Gasly's first win, AlphaTauri, 2020,
right?
So there you go. Anyway,
okay.
So
2020. Wow.
You need to kind of like hang around and have good reliability with this regulation, because we're starting to see now that there are some issues with it. The power units are very complex. They're very complicated. Even the littlest of things are really throwing a huge wrench into the team's race weekends. And so it'll be like, as they develop this car, and let's see the direction that they go in, because they have been pretty upfront with knowing and understanding aerodynamically, they have a lot to fix, especially with the front wing first. And let's see where they end up, because if you look at Haas, they have done an incredible job to start this season, and they too are going to make improvements. And that Ferrari engine can only get better, where that Mercedes engine, they can't really do much with it now because it's homologated. So I mean, it is where it is. It's very powerful. It's really good in a straight line. So if Alpine can kind of build on that before sort of Ferrari can deal with their power unit issues and Haas brings performance updates, then I can see them like potentially some races having a shot at like a podium for sure. I could see that later on in the season. This is going to be a development battle. That's what this season is. And we're going to see huge swings. We're going to see swings like from teams who are at the front of the grid that could become the second or third fastest team on the grid by the end of the season.
And I mean, listen, Max hates the regulations, and obviously he had to retire the car and that sort of thing. But Isaac Hadjar got in.
Quickly,
on Max.
Yeah, just quickly on Max. So he retired with an energy recovery system issue. And that's what was Max's problem. And you say like Hadjar, I felt had done like a very good job this weekend.
Yep.
Considering all the crap that Antonelli run into him in the sprint, and then he had his first lap issues in the Chinese Grand Prix off the start with Behrman. But that car had a horrible balance like all weekend long, like just terrible. I saw 5 seconds of Max's onboard, and I think it was in sprint quali. I saw like 5 seconds of his onboard. Immediately, I was like, "Yeah, this is going to be a rough weekend for him." Like there was no balance whatsoever in that chassis. So Pierre Vacher, Max, Laurent Mekies, Raymond Vermeulen, they all took a flight out of China together. They're on the same private jet leaving after the race. And I can bet you like a huge part of their discussion, maybe not so much, Adam, focused on Red Bull powertrains, but more focused on like, what are you doing with this car aerodynamically? Because it's just not there.
Right. Well, I'm curious about that. I think, Max being as public about it, like, Tim, do you think that Max would say these things if he was winning races? I think that's what everybody wants to know.
I've never known him not to speak his mind.
Yeah, of course.
And the more I've like gotten to get to know him over the last few seasons, I would say in particular, he's always given me the goods. Like he's always told me like what he thinks, right? Exactly what he thinks. I think he still would say the things that he is saying. Even if he was winning, like he would still probably tell us all that he doesn't like these regulations because he doesn't like them. Like, and that's just the way he is. And that's fair. And I got a lot of respect for that for sure. Cause I think there are some who kind of gloss over these things and they don't tell us everything that they're thinking at times. Sometimes I wish they would, but I understand that there's bigger things going on behind the scenes. So I get it. But at the same time, yeah, I like that Max tells us like what he's thinking. I don't know about saying like, hey, if you like this, then you don't know anything about racing. I don't agree with that. But he told you what he thought, right?
Yeah. I'm very, very curious about if Red Bull are able to turn this around. Does some of that go away, or does he just say it's still? Listen, I'm happy to win, but this still sucks. So for Max, like he's talked to F1, he's talked to the FIA.
Yeah. He's expressed his feelings about the power unit, the regulation, and what he would like to see changed for this season, and then further changes that could be made for next year. And that like.
I mean, listen. The reality is, Tim, is a quarter of the cars didn't finish the race.
Yeah, it's not good.
And then a quarter were like a lap behind.
Yeah, that's also not good, right? And some of them who have the same power units as those who are winning is like there's still like a second or more, and it's like, well, hold on a second, like that doesn't stack up.
But so, that's regulation changes too, right? It can be that way.
Exactly, and these teams also still have to learn the software. Each team that runs whatever engine, they have to kind of figure it out on their own as well, because other teams are noticing that, like, now that we've got a cost cap, you can see teams now make gains quicker. And, I think we, as like hardcore F1 fans, I think we also get stuck in that sense that, they've got the best car, they're just going to run away with it, etc., right? It's going to be like years past and whatever. But we're all lulled into that because what we've seen in the past under regulation changes. And we are in a regulation change where we have a cost cap. And what we saw from last year, and that was an aerodynamic regulation change, right? So if you went the wrong way on your chassis and you spent all that money, I mean, you're in for a tough season. But if you hit it right and you nailed your development and you nailed your trajectory, you had a McLaren, right? You had a Williams, like, coming out of nowhere. And so now that we're in this regulation, those things can and will happen. Like, we will get those big. So yes, at the moment, Mercedes is having a great time out front. They have their advantage for sure, but they're going to get pulled back in. They will. It's a matter of time and by which team is going to do it. I mean, Ferrari has done a remarkable job.
Yeah.
Like, their qualifying is not the greatest. Their power unit needs a little more juice. Their racing is great, though. They're able to at least mix it up and give Mercedes a hard time. And I think, Adam, as the season sort of rolls along and we'll see where this regulation goes, we'll see what Japan is like, because we need more data from that. And then you can start to see some adjustments being made, and then you're probably won't be seeing these massive gaps. Like you had said, Adam, they are huge gaps. Like, I think,
they are. But again, it's 2 races in.
Exactly. In a new regulation. So it's like, I know for everyone for those who are loving what they're seeing, but for those who are not loving what they're seing, like, just give it time. Give it time. Just got to give it time. That's all I'm saying.
Now, the last thing I want to talk to you about very quickly is before we get to questions, is the cancellations of the Jeddah and the Bahrain Grand Prix. So that's Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. We basically we don't get a race in April now. So the first race after Japan, which is in 2 weeks' time. So Japan will be 2 weeks' time. Nothing in April now, and then Miami. So the Canadian race will actually be the 5th on the calendar, which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
Been a long time since that was the case.
Yeah.
I'm curious about, the decision is obvious, right? There's a war. Might not be a declared war, but there are strikes that are affecting the entire region. The thing I instantly thought about was the Abu Dhabi race at the end of the year, Tim. I mean, that's got to be something they're already talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any insight on if they're thinking that far ahead yet.
Yep.
I think it's like wait and see where and how this sort of plays out, and then start making the decisions. I mean, if there's still conflict going on, if there's still, then I think you probably would have to make a similar sort of decision. Right. And I think for them, it's just trying to wait and see like what happens. There are other series who have postponed their races and moved them later on in the year. Like WEC did. Yep. I think MotoGP did as well. I think they moved one of their races, and someone can double check this for me. I'm pretty sure they moved theirs till later in November. And I think it was Qatar. That they had just came out and said before when you and I taped this, recorded this. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. It's like now you've only got 22 races, and you also have 4 weeks off before the next round. And it's how does that affect the teams. Is it good for them? Is it bad for them? You would think that it's good for them. Parts of it is probably not the greatest because they need to have data. The cars need to be out running so they can collect the data to make the car better. So you're only going to have 3 races to sort of judge what you've got instead of having a bigger sample size. And I think the teams would love to have more data, a bigger sample size. That will be interesting to see how they're like what comes to Miami and what doesn't come to Miami. Like, does McLaren bring a massive update to Miami now, which if memory serves, they were scheduled to bring some stuff to Miami similar to what they had done in 2024. Now we'll see if they do that, right? Like, who knows? It could be put off as well. Cause there's a week off in between Miami and Canada. So there could be parts that are shipped to Canada that we arrive in Canada and we have cars that have taken huge steps with updates that they've brought for at the start of that race, right? So it's all a moving target now, and we'll see where that all shakes out for them, because it's definitely I think it's going to be tough for some teams having 4 weeks off. I think it's going to be good for others though. It's going to benefit those differently, that's for sure. Adam, about Aston Martin.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about them real quick, and then
let's do it. Let's sneak them in. A couple of questions.
Some of the questions. Okay, so Alonso, if you didn't see it, you can go over to my Twitter. I posted it there. Actually, I shared it. So someone had posted Alonso's onboard camera from the race and him taking his hands off the steering wheel because of the vibrations. It's something we've talked about on the show quite a bit. So there were some questions that were sent to me about vibration. Like, was it fixed? Like, because Honda had said that they'd put in countermeasures in Australia, even though the drivers didn't do the number of laps that they've done here. So Alonso did 33 laps. So they've never done that many laps in a row. So the amount of vibrations and, just trying to deal with that for that length of time was just not possible for Alonso to keep doing it. He had to stop and get out of the car. Right. Honda and the team are currently working on more countermeasures. So they've found some solutions to the problem, which revolves around the battery, the MGUK, and it's not performance progress that they're looking at. It's kind of like countermeasures to try and dampen down the amount of vibrations that go through the entire chassis as well. And so leading into Japan, that's going to be important, Adam, because that's Honda's home race.
Yeah, I saw the statement from them today. I was like, ooh, that's going to be awkward.
That's definitely going to be awkward, man. That's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for those who work on the power unit.
Yep. To
be in their Honda's hometown race, right? And this is what they've got. So Adrian Newey didn't go to China for the race. He's back at the factory working on some other things. He will be going to more races this season. He's not going to go to all of them, but he'll pop in and out of races as the season sort of moves along. I think it's when the team has to really look at, for Japan, like, what are the concessions that they're looking at having to make to get this car to finish the race. Because... Right. I mean, obviously, when you see Sergio Perez or whatever the Cadillac was passing Alonso, and Alonso's like literally waving at them as they went by. I don't know if you saw that video.
Yes, I did. I sure did.
But, I mean, that's not it's not. No, good,
it's not
right?
great.
So, I mean, they have a ton of work to do, and who's to know whether or not they can get some sort of an exemption to start working on open the power unit up and start making all the changes that they need to make to get this thing competitive again, or get it competitive, not again, get it competitive.
Right. Yeah, and I'm looking at your tweets and that sort of thing. So I want to, you ask people for their thoughts. It's sort of interesting to see after 2 races what people said. So Sonny says a quarter of the cars retired before a quarter of the race had been completed. That's an interesting way to put it. Have to be patient and see where things go. But so many teams seem unprepared, and with no Middle East races to add to the running, this seems like it's going to be a tough watch for a while. And then compare and contrast that with Ryan, who says the wheel-to-wheel battling has been incredible between Charles and Lewis. The first two races would have been much less entertaining if not for Ferrari's mobility. Merck would be winning by 30-plus seconds every time. And then in Baltimore says, I think the size and shape of the cars has the potential for phenomenal racing. Now the power units need to catch up. When this all works as intended, these cars are going to rip. Are you sensing that, like, there was a lot of doom and gloom going into these regulations, Tim, and now I wonder if it's less doom and gloom, more, hey, this could work, but they got to make some tweaks.
I think it's that, Adam. I think that it's, and for those who haven't made up their mind yet, right? I mean, some, message me their thoughts, and sometimes it's a lot. And like, hey, look, you're very passionate motorsport fan and been around motorsports like forever. I get it. I think there are some really good things in here. I really do. There's some things that definitely need fixing. There's no question about that. Mm-hmm. No question. But for those who have already kind of like written all this stuff off, I mean, I wouldn't write it off just yet. Like, there are still some, like we had been talking about, there are some things that need some tweaking, for sure. And also the sustainable fuel conversation. We need to start having more of that conversation. It's a huge thing that we're totally glossing over the last 2 weekends. Like, we're totally glossed over it. And it's a huge thing. It's huge. It's massive what has gone into that. So I'd be curious to know, Adam, a couple more comments, because I didn't read I don't know. I usually, you read them back to me and I'm just kind of like, oh, interesting, and react kind of on the spot. So
yeah.
But what'd you say, the comments under that post? Are they more like 50-50? I think some like it, some don't?
I think they're leaning hopeful. Leaning hopeful is what I'd say. Like, if you go back and you look, they're acknowledging, nobody's like, oh, these regulations are great. No one's saying they're awful. They're just saying, okay, I feel like it's there, but it's not there yet. Mm-hmm. Like, unlock this for me.
I understand that. Yeah, I can see that for sure. I don't know. Do you see it that way, Adam? Like,
I do. I'm excited about the cars. I still wish they were smaller, but they are smaller than the last 4 years. I think that I was not, even though McLaren won a couple of the championships in the last regulation, I'm still not the biggest fan of those regulations just generally. And so it's kind of nice to have something new. I don't know, Tim. I feel like it's there. It could be there, and maybe in a year's time, we're looking at this going, man, this is really exciting racing, and there's a lot of leadership change. Because here's the thing: one of the things that I think people are mad about is it's like, well, I just want two cars going head to head, and it's driver on driver. It's never that, right? It's never that unless they're on the same team, and then they have to have equal parts, and then they got to be at the same level. Like, Formula One inherently is unfair. The cars are not. They're not the same, and therefore, oftentimes what you're getting is a great car and a great driver versus a great driver and a mediocre car, right? So if there are going to be leadership changes in the race, and then there's a lot of flipping back and forth, and people are changing, well, that leads to issues. That leads to somebody screwing up a strategy. That leads to somebody going wide on a corner. That is the kind of racing we want to see, where there's some chaos, and not like NASCAR 40-car pileup chaos. We want to see what these guys look like when they're stressed to the max and they have to concede a place and then immediately try to get it back. Like, that's the I think the essence that they're trying to capture.
Yeah, it kind of has. If you look at last season and where we were with that regulation, it was there was a ton of convergence, right? Like, from first place to 20th place was separated by less than a second sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's us getting to, in not the greatest of regulation. Okay, let me put that out there.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But that's us witnessing, like, these drivers making the difference.
Yep.
Right? We saw the athlete make the difference. Okay, McLaren had that had the rear tire overheating under control better than other teams did. That's a part of the sport. That's a part of the team and the understanding and your people working together as a team to figure it out. And then you had the drivers who were the difference makers. Oscar looked set to walk away with this thing. Lando Norris came back. Max Verstappen came back. They made a couple changes to the Red Bull, gave Max as best a car as they could, and then he was the difference maker.
Yep.
Right? And then we had a clear battle for the championship that went down to the final race of the season. If you were to continue that regulation for another year, we would have seen something eerily similar of that, and we would be talking about drivers, and we would be able to judge the drivers better, and we'd be able to dig into this guy does this better, this guy does that better, at this race they do this, at this race, I think it was a perfect example where we saw like Oscar struggled at tracks that didn't have a lot of grip. We had some of those tracks come up, right?
Yep.
And he struggled at those tracks. And that is where the athlete needs to learn, make that difference, come back the next year and basically turn that weakness into a strength. And so we're not like that. That's where we were sort of headed with that sort of regulation. So there are instances of Formula One where we do have that, where we have had that. And now with this current regulation, we need to see what it can become. And the car regulation, we need to see what that can become. And then we need to see where it can go. Yeah. And then we need to stick with it.
Yeah, let's stick with it, see what happens.
Because when you stick with it, you get the convergence. And when you get the convergence, and we actually, these guys taking these cars to the limit in some instances, then we start to see like who is the best.
Right.
And if that's what you're into, right?
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I'm into. Kind of makes me wish they'd held on to the last regulations just 1 year longer so we could have had a season of more convergence. So I hope they'll hold these ones longer.
Yeah, it would have been interesting, Adam? Like I would have been curious to see that too. I would have loved to have seen like what that would have turned into. I know the drivers didn't love those cars either. Like they were big, they were heavy. Like
they were not the best race to watch. Let's be honest.
No,
we can say that now.
They were okay. Like some races were entertaining and good, but the cars were too big, too heavy. Once you lose them, they're gone. You can't bring them back. These cars are smaller, they're lighter. Once you lose them, you can bring them back. You can see these guys really wrestling with these cars, and I like that aspect of it. Real quick, Cadillac, I forgot to mention. Yeah. Both cars finished. P13 for Bottas, P15 for Sergio Perez. Perez and Valtteri made contact at the start of the race. Perez took ownership for it, said it was his fault. And so I think for Cadillac, Adam, as I forgot to add them into our show. Yeah, Cadillac was great. That's really good for that team. See what happens for them in Japan.
All right. Well, Tim, we'll catch up on Thursday this weekend. Reminder, there's no Monday podcast the following week because there's no Grand Prix this weekend, but we will catch up on Thursdays. We will see you then, and we'll have more information at that point. I'm sure there's going to be more on the regs that come out between now and then. Tim, thank you so much.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.